Celebrity Book Club. Who's that knocking at the door? It's all your friends, you filthy whore. Your husband's gone and we've got books and a bottle of wine to kill.
It's Hollywood.
It's books.
It's gossip.
I'm shook.
It's memoirs.
It's martinis.
It's Studio 54.
It's Celebrity Book Club.
Come read it while it's hot.
Celebrity Book Club.
Tell your secrets, we won't talk.
Celebrity Book Club.
No boys are allowed.
Celebrity Book Club.
Say it loud and proud.
Celebrity Book Club.
Buzz me in, I brought the Cuervo.
Hey, best friend!
Hey, one of my dearest, oldest friends.
Oh, darling, I haven't seen you in ages.
I haven't seen you since you rented that tough little college in St. Moritz in the spring of 1968, and we went climbing every day. And of course you couldn't because you had lost your ankle in a terrible accident.
Remind me, darling, was that when I was married to Dr. Albert Bercosi, one of the finest ankle doctors in all of Nice?
You were married to that doctor, but of course you were having an affair with this terrible Egyptian artist, one of the shortest men I've ever seen, who of course drowned in a terrible sinking.
Darling, he was short, but his bank account wasn't short, and our lovemaking was splendid for the first 2 years. Okay.
Okay, so we're talking in crazy voices.
It's a super theater camp over here today, and yeah, strap into your Shea lounge from the 20s because it's about to get really theater camp.
We're talking this because we read, actually, this is maybe my new favorite book.
Yeah, I think so. Even though we randomly might have read two different books.
So
they're both our new favorite books.
This is Peggy Guggenheim's memoir, and yes, honey, that Guggenheim.
Yes, the museum, you know it.
It's called Out of This Century: Confessions of an Art Addict. So, okay, here's the thing: you read Confessions of an Art Addict. I read Out of This Century. Because I realized halfway through, did you get to the part where she kind of explains what happened? She goes, in 1959, at the suggestion of Nicholas Bentley, the English editor and illustrator, I condensed Out of This Century into fewer than 100 pages and added material about my life during the intervening period. As Confessions of an Art Addict, it was published in 1960 by Andre Deutsch in London and the Macmillan Company in New York. She goes, so I seem to have written the first book as an uninhibited woman, and the second one as a lady who was trying to establish her place in the history of modern art. And she had just gone through where she was reading all these reviews where basically everyone was just like, she was an absolute slut and a whore and a cockney. Yeah. And she lived her life with absolutely zero principle, just like the art she purports to like. Because she was a big proponent of like
surrealist modern art.
Of modern art, which was really bold at the time.
Absolutely bold. I mean, where she basically discovered Jackson Pollock, though he disagrees, and we'll get into that.
So the book you read had a lot of the first half removed, which is what I spent most of my time reading, which was all about her, various affairs, and she was constantly sleeping with married men, and then also being married and like having affairs and like sleeping with Duchamp and then sleeping with Samuel Beckett and sleeping with Yves Tanguy and just like all of the artists at the time.
And in my book, she definitely is talking about sleeping with Samuel Beckett, but it's a little more, she'll, brief it over and then, more talk about the Biennale and then collectors.
In Out of This Century and sort of in Stephen's version, this is very like Taylor's version. So just like in Stephen's version, she's giving you the full play-by-play. She's just like, and then darling, like, Dorothy's husband couldn't know that I was sleeping with Max Ernst, so I slipped him a key while we were at a cafe in Lisbon. And she's giving you like the blow by blow of like every time she has sex with every single person.
What's crazy also before we realize this is that like I was like, wait, she already is giving me the blow by blow and it's completely insane. Like even in this abridged version, she's just like, well, and then darling, he had the most wonderful lovemaking style, but he left me for an ugly, ugly nurse who I detested. And I caught them bare naked on the floor in Luxembourg. And so I was like, and then when you told me, I was like, oh, damn, she's like even going more into the fucking of Duchamp.
No, and it's like there's something very the OC, the original OC about this book, where it's like everyone's always walking into each other's Paris apartments or just like hotel rooms at the Plaza Athénée. And she's always just like staying at a friend's villa in Montparnasse for 6 weeks because they were in the South recovering from a terrible illness. And everyone's always lending each other their summer homes and their winter homes and then walking in on each other with each other's wives that they've been estranged with for 6 years but are still technically married to because they needed a visa, Dolly. It was the war.
I will say though, yes, but that it's the OC, but that's also just like all shows, Kramer stuff. Where just like you're walking in and like everyone has keys.
True.
And
You call me in other shows.
Other shows, Joey and Chandler are so the Peggy Guggenheim.
Okay, petition for a show to actually show what it's really like to go
Thank
to
you.
people's houses. No show ever has someone outside being like, hey, I'm outside. I want to see that more in TV shows.
Realism where you're knocking, where you're buzzing, you're texting.
And you're texting.
Ugh, we need so much more realism. Okay, so I have to admit something that I learned. But actually, that honestly, this is why we read the book, because you learn things. I thought Peggy Guggenheim owned the Guggenheim.
Owned
the museum.
Too, honestly, no.
Okay.
Well, but then I was thinking about it because when you walk by the museum,
it says Solomon.
It says Solomon. It says
yes.
it on the museum in that kind of Art Deco font.
But I just assumed that, okay, it does say Solomon all Guggenheim, but she was in there and doing stuff.
I assumed that she was absolutely in there in the sort in the conch shell sort of swirl. Geary, who is that? Made that? Lloyd Wright?
No, okay. So to just jump ahead before we get into the sex, at the end of Confessions of an Art Addict, the more art abridged version, she goes all the way the fuck off on Frank Lloyd Wright and says that she thinks the Guggenheim was such a bad design. And then she's like, luckily he died, darling.
Everyone dies in this book.
Everyone dies. And he was fighting with the curator. And she's she thinks the up and downs, the classic circular of the Guggenheim is really bad for seeing art, and it was really hard for all of the art handlers and the lighting.
I will say this. So the Guggenheim famously, it has galleries that are off the main spiral, but the actual spiral portion is very whatever, and it is just what do you put in the spiral?
Right.
I do kind of agree with her on that, because then it's either you have to do these long murals that are so whatever, and then it's where are you putting the explanatory text, or they're really they're over relying on the pillars. And it's just and of course, a curved wall, darling, it's hard to hang a painting on. Although,
exactly.
When she did have that, one of her galleries, maybe it's the Guggenheim Jeune in London, there was, I feel there was a room where she had this crazy curved wall to hang surrealist paintings that there's pictures of in the book.
Well, I think she is into
she is into activating spaces in unique ways.
Yes, where she's anti-frame sometimes.
Yes.
And she was just oh, darling, I said, let's take off those garish frames. And getting away from that Renaissance Italian big gilded Da Vinci.
And I think this is also a time, and you're talking about it right now, is because modern frames hadn't really been invented yet. So it was either this big gilded frame, and she was just well, this gilded is insanely gilded, and unless you're looking at just the most pastoral landscape or serious portraiture, the gilded is kind of off for this Kandinsky or this Miro. So maybe let's ditch the frame, because people had invented just frame bridge ass frames.
Yeah, no, I mean, Peggy Guggenheim, clearly she is the biggest. Now after reading this, I'm just I'm obsessed. You invented art, you invented downtown, you invented Bohemia, you are the it girl, you invented everything. And I'm just so you also invented frame bridge and light wood frames, but also just she invented all those gallery shows I went to in college that were just people taking photos from a disposable camera and pinning it on the wall.
Yeah, which is also just everyone's bedroom, circa they're 20 years old to hopefully only 26, but then
hopefully 26.
Sometimes you see people in their 30s who are still being so Polaroids as decor, and it's just babe.
Yeah, it's move that to the Frigidaire.
That's fridge only for the photos.
Okay, move it to the icebox, darling. We had elk and other sorts, so I just whipped up a fabulous meal and I put up Polaroids.
just to back up, so she's from the Upper East Side. She is born wealthy. The Guggenheim family is a very wealthy Jewish mining family, and they have quite a bit of cash. And it is her father. Yes, her father's the Guggenheim, and then her mother's family though is like more kind of more society famous.
Yes, they're like two types of rich.
And like they kind of look down on the Guggenheims because they're just like, oh god, they're like so uncultured. They're just these like brutish miners, even though the Guggenheims were like maybe technically richer.
Which is honestly such a thing. It's so like nouveau riche, just
Right.
right. You can be like rich from like a lawn mowing company,
Right, and
but
people
just
look
like
down on you for having your just like
big McMansion.
your landscape company. Or yeah, you're big, you install kitchen islands for McMansions and like you have a lot of money, but the other families at the country club look down on you, darling.
And so there's her father passes away on, you've heard of it,
The Titanic.
the Titanic. So epic.
It's so fucking epic. And she's describing her childhood and just like every page of this book completely insane. And she's just like, well, darling, I mean, of course, like I was madly in love with my piano teacher and then he died. And then Benita and I would steal from the local bookshop. And she was dastardly in love with our cousin. But of course it wasn't possible until he did get married off to my other cousin. And then my father died in the Titanic, along with several other prominent men of the day. And it affected me terribly and I never recovered and I wanted to kill myself. But it was the most wonderful year of my life.
Right. It's like she is always being so depressed, but like, I mean, I think this, can happen a lot. Like she seems so fabulous. So she's telling you she's depressed and she's like, oh, and my second husband left me and I've never been more depressed. But like, darling, then I started a gallery and like I was having so many friends over and traveling and you're like, go off, bitch.
It's very,
like,
there's something very
the
human.
joy of life,
She really is a liver of life because there are many times in this book where something horrible has happened. So her second like great love, John Holmes, dies.
Right. Tell me about this because in the book she goes from Lawrence Vale, her first husband, to Max Ernst, her second husband.
I can't believe John Holmes is like the most significant love of her life.
And then she talks about Samuel Beckett and how he was like, I'm actually not in love with you.
There's two quite great lovers that get just like quite a lot of treatment. So John Holmes was a writer who had writer's block. And the entire book is just like, well, darling, he couldn't even write one poem. And they're always like finding a new house. He sounds very gay panic because it's like, she was just like, well, every summer we would spend half the summer simply looking for a house to summer in because John just had the most dastardly of tastes. And he was so specific and he simply was never happy. But then when we finally found a house, it was the most lovely home ever. We had a beautiful 3 weeks in Basque country. And she's like talking about how they like live near Andorra or just like found a place in England or the south of France. And like they're always moving to some new fabulous home in Switzerland for a period of 6 months. And she'll just be like, and it was the most happiest time of our entire lives. And we held court every single night with all of Bohemia. But of course, John was terribly depressed and was prone to drinking. And I spent many nights crying alone after being beaten.
And you're like,
And you're like, wait, so was it happy or sad? And you're like, but that's
Yeah,
actually
and you're like,
life.
well, and again, to quote Auntie Mame, one of the most famous quotes, life is a banquet, most suckers are starving to death. And I think Peggy Guggenheim really lives to that, I try to live to that as well.
No, I absolutely try to. And, and I, as I was going through it, I kept thinking there were times when I felt like, oh God, when I felt so small and like I had so much more to do and so much more to live. And I was, we were wasting away our lives in front of the screens, But then there were times where I was like, well, God damn it, I have lived a life, darling, and there's a lot more left in me.
Absolutely. Well, because in the book, I wasn't really keeping track of how old she was, where I was like, wait a second, did like no one ever know?
Yeah, I think no one ever knew. But that's another thing because sometimes you're reading the book and I'm like, well, God damn it, I feel like such a fucking virgin because I feel like she's like slept with Duchamp and then slept with Beckett and then it's going back to John Holmes and then it's just like going back and forth so much and I'm just like, God damn it, she's like, she's been ran through by every goddamn surrealist in all of Europe. But then I'm like, maybe this was over a period of like 3.5 years and there was just like a winter where like she didn't have sex for 3 months because it's just like, well, you could only contact people by letter, like by ship. So it was like going to take a while anyway.
She also is always talking about how she's gets bored, even though she seems to live the most fascinating life. Which I love that in our hustle culture or something like that, like the way she says bored seems fabulous. She's like, well, darling, I was bored. So I decided I need to make wooden boxes and I need to go to Indiana and I need to get a nose job. So
Okay.
she gets a nose job and she goes to Indiana for an entire year. And then she goes, and darling, I took up gambling. I lost a fortune.
She also says that she hated the new nose that she got, and she was like, and it was never the same. And darling, John called me pig nose, which we all found dreadfully hilarious.
Right. And it's like, I mean, not to spoil the segments, but I mean, I feel like you were so regretful after your non-cosmetic nose job.
Thank you. I was regretful after my medically elective nasal procedure. That did not change the outside because I thought it didn't work and it was like so painful and the recovery was so long. Ultimately, now I'm kind of like 50-50 on it because I do feel like I don't blow my nose anymore and I do feel a lot better.
Yeah,
about
I
my
think
allergies,
you are clearer.
But it did take a long time. Wait, so
do you think you took up gambling in the recovery?
I mean, I did get really into the Property Brothers mobile game.
There you go. Same
in
thing.
many ways is gambling. Okay, wait. So she's in Egypt, naturally. This is about her being bored.
Okay.
Once you get on the Nile, you must give up all sense of time. But I couldn't. I became so impatient that I almost went mad. Lawrence, this is her first husband, Lawrence spent hours below in a cabin writing a book. He had a Puritan conscience, and he was a writer. Sinbad and Lily, those are the children, were left behind in the hotel in Aswan at the first cataract. I got bored, and to amuse myself, I bought a pregnant goat. I'd hoped to see it give birth. However, it fooled me by choosing the one short hour I was absent, visiting some friends on a Cook steamboat. Just like, I'm sorry, she was bored, so she bought a pregnant goat, hoping to watch it give birth. And then it gave birth while she was on a Cook's steamboat, trying to amuse herself for once. She also, okay, this is a theme throughout the book where she's constantly hoping to see animals give birth.
Oh, well, okay. She is obsessed with her type of terrier, which is a Lhasa or Lhasa terrier. And so she has like a bunch of them, but then she keeps like, she's obsessed with them. So she breeds them, but then she realizes she's like inbreeding them. So she like goes on a search for more like outer, none of her Lhasa terriers. So just this one part shows, my two darling Lhasa terriers had mated with a gentleman dog specially bought for this purpose from America by Mrs. Bernard Rice and had produced 57 puppies in my home. About actually 6 remain in residence. Over the sofas, I placed a black and white striped fur rugs, which the dogs adored to lick. This was also very un-Venetian. And it's like, I'm guessing she is putting those rugs there so her terriers can lick them, but I'm also just like, I also feel like so many like Lhasa terriers are being born on this couch. And it's like soaked with like Lhasa placenta.
I mean, I feel like rich people used to be so pets, I want to say, and like the Queen of England is still so dogs, but like in this way where now I think pets are much more of like a middle class pursuit, but it used to be like rich because
Paris Hilton
but
literally has 9 chihuahuas and her whole thing is little pets.
She's a very specific person and she's into tiny little dogs like as an accessory. Tiny dogs as an accessory is a very post tabloid culture, post 2009 thing,
which
like,
is like a rich girl thing. So I actually think Paris Hilton having tiny dogs is descended from Peggy Guggenheim having 9 terriers running around.
Okay, you're right, and I am going to maybe concede this point on you. Okay, times have not changed. Rich people have always been very into like having a million pets because she constantly, when she lives at the house in south of France, where they live in this tiny little town, Dolly, and I had to travel hours to get milk every day. She's also so like me and Ridgewood, where it's just like there are days when she's like, well, of course, half the day was I went to go get milk, and then I forgot the fish, so I went back out 2 hours later, and the entire time her kids are with like various nannies, and she's like,
well, yeah, because she's always like, oh, my darling daughter Pegeen, but you're like,
so also sidebar, it's so insane to be Peggy and name your daughter Pegeen.
Pegeen, and it's like we would never really know. That's not
if you named your daughter Liline.
Liline, I'm like, where is Liline? Oh, she's at the Raftenbergs. Wonderful.
But she's always, because then she has all these dogs at the South of France house, and then then they're making all these new dog babies, and the dog babies are terrorizing the town. And darling, we all had a laugh about it. But of course, they nearly killed the local innkeeper when they attacked her while she was doing her morning waterings.
Which, okay, the other reason why also she is beyond you one is, and I feel like she's having one of her gatherings at Bohemia, and she's is telling this roaring story where she's Lily is flying in the air, and she's just and then I had to go back to the fish market, and they're all like, ah.
Wait, so you're saying when I'm in Bohemia, my stories are just me getting coffee?
No.
And everyone's pretending to laugh as I'm holding court.
Actually, that's randomly not my point, but it also can be, is that she's always talking about how she was I lived when I think she has the June gallery, and she was I was there constantly, and if you have a gallery, she was being so she boss, and this is a business, not a sorority, and I was there 27 hours a day, but then she's and I could hardly leave to go to a dentist appointment or go to the oraculist, which I have no idea what the oraculist is.
Well, at some point she was I finally fell out of love with Samuel Beckett after visiting a fortune teller.
Oh, yes. Wait, hold on. We need to get to that part. But so then she's and of course, when I was at the oraculist, is when this buyer came by, or some important person, and they started rumors that she was never at her gallery. And she was
here's the thing about her gallery work, where it's she's talking about it, where I'm just if this were modern times, and this goes back to, I think Peggy really would have loved the modern era, because just she could have not been bored because she would have had a phone. But she's always just well, there's nothing like getting ready for a gallery opening. It takes months. You have to compile a list of everyone that you're going to invite to the opening. You have to write a catalog. And writing the catalog of just literally listing the works is always this project that takes 6 months. She's employing 17 of her closest friends who know the artists. And it's just this kind of work that I just feel nowadays is very being done in
by a gallery girl.
By a gallery girl, where you just have the artist bio, and then you're this is the list of the works.
Did you read the part where in Italy, she writes a gallery intro or whatever to her book or catalog, and it gets translated into Italian? She goes to the small gallery bookstore or whatever, and it's okay, she goes to the very massed books or whatever, where it's being, and she goes, it was the most horrible thing I had ever read because the translation was so bad. So she just weeps and weeps for hours at the translation.
No, it reminds you to sometimes it's okay to sort of luxuriate in these things.
Yes, sob at the translation.
Sob at the translation. Spend 3 weeks writing a paragraph long artist bio.
I mean, that's so me being about a comedy show being just send us an about me 3 sentences, and me be sitting down being Lily is, and you're do I put a hilarious joke here, or are we serious? And you're Lily is loves lobster. Lily has performed at MoMA.
Right,
and then you're
do I do serious credits? Do I do joke credits?
And then the day is done, and then you have to go to the dentist, and you're all Becky.
Celebrity Book Club.
Okay, let's
go through her. So Lawrence Vale is her first husband.
Right. And then she's with this guy, John Holmes, who dies very tragically. He's thrown from a horse, of course, at their English home one summer. And then for 3 years, his wrist is broken, and it's quite painful for him. And so he finally concedes to get this operation done at their home in Paris. And he dies while under anesthesia. And she's darling, and of course it was the king's anesthetist.
And this is why I'm so afraid of anesthesia. It's
same.
Us.
But I do think medicine at this time was just not.
Well, yeah, it was going to go ahead and be the
foods.
30s.
And it's sounding so the 30s, but also they're just on this weird cusp before modern medicine, where it's x-rays are happening. So they are doing surgeries, but it's they're just doing them kind of badly.
Yeah, and before they were just giving in Western times, cowboys were so give him, a bottle of whiskey and pass out. And now they're like, we've created anesthetics.
Right.
And then there's like killing someone.
And then they're just fully killing someone. And she was like, and of course they all knew that they'd killed him. And then she could tell that all the doctors are so nervous that she's gonna go just like full medical malpractice suit on them. And they're being like, he actually was like a total alcoholic and like his system was like bad or whatever, like, which is I'm sure true.
Right.
And it sounds like she wasn't being so grudge and insane. And like, even though she's American, she's not like so litigious. And I do respect that about her.
She's American, but she likes Europe better than America. Like, she does come back to the US after the phony war. At first she calls World War II the phony war, but then when like all of her like friend Bohemia surrealist painters like are getting put in concentration camps, she's just like, oh, the war was awful.
I mean, yeah, she's running around France at the beginning of the war, and she's just like, and she keeps like trying to put on a gallery show, like as the war is starting.
Obsessed with. I was like, because you're like, and she is just like, well, okay, so I shipped all of Max Ernst's paintings, and then I shipped a Kandinsky, and at that time, I mean, my Pollocks came through, but they got stuck in customs in Italy. Don't ever send anything through Italy.
And she was literally full key trying to like put on a gallery show in Paris and then being like, and then she's like at a cafe at one point with like Duchamp or like Beckett or someone. And she was like, and they were like bombing the outer suburbs of Paris. And she was just being like, oh God, what's that dreadful racket? and she was like, and I was still going back to the kitchen to fetch more wine. And so then eventually she's just like, okay, we have to get out. And so there's this point where everyone is like fleeing Paris and everyone's like, the roads are packed on. And she was like, it was wonderful because they were barely checking anyone's passports because everyone was fleeing. And she was like, well, all these fools were going west because they thought the Germans were coming from the east. And everyone said, oh, you're going to run into the Italian army. I said, oh, darling, I doubt it. And so then she's just like fleeing to like this random village where she is for a while. And then they go to Marseille and then they take a boat to Lisbon. But she's being very just like,
I don't know. I'm also just, okay, here's
scared.
a theory.
There's a point
like,
where she gets scared. I mean, yes, she's rich. I think that's the theory.
Yes, she is rich. I guess I'm like in this like
But she's
COVID
Jewish,
way of
so
how
you would-
people got like rapids, rich, like the Illuminati got rapids earlier. Like,
Right.
I was like, was she getting such like tea from Julia Child, who was a spy? And Julia Child was like, Peggy, you must go west. pack the Pollocks.
Pack the Pollocks.
And she's like, darling, thank you. By the way, that duck recipe was phenomenal. And was it Armagnac you used? I must get a bottle of that. This fan fiction between Peggy and Julia.
I think that's fully true. Julia was sending her a cable, darling, a telegram. And she said, you must get out of Paris and ship the paintings. Because there's one scene in Marseille where like some police come, some gendarmes come. And then she was like, and they asked me if I was Jewish. And I said, no, darling, I'm American. And she was like, and of course I was terrified that they were going to ship me off to one of these dreadful camps. But then they don't ship her up to a camp. Also, Max Ernst was like a camp survivor.
That part was insane. So Max Ernst, who I did look up, who is a surrealist painter.
All right, we'll talk about surrealism in a minute. But then I love the part where she was like, and whenever he would meet someone from the camps, they would talk about it as if they had all been to the same vacation town. Like,
no, I know.
Like Sam
she
Moritz.
was like, she was jealous, and she's like, so, and she goes, it was actually crazy when being back in America, and she's like, and we're going to gallery, and they're like going to so many restaurants, and it's like this total like return for her, and she's like rocking around with her new husband, Max Ernst, and she's like, it was amazing to go with someone everyone recognized, and like she's feeling so like famous, and everyone from the concentration camps is being so like, what is up? And she's like jealous that they're all.
And she's just
flawed.
like, okay, not. She'd be like, oh, not you guys all in Como together, and he's being so like, okay, saw you at Auschwitz.
Let's get into surrealism. Sorry, I'm like not into it.
Not into it. Okay, surrealism.
And I've never been into surrealism.
Okay, surrealism to me, yes, I know it's like from the 20s or whatever. It's the most like,
and it was like rocking then, like the
and
world,
it blew their minds. To me, it's so straight guy being like, whoa, trippy, man.
Yeah, it's like the invention of like Grateful Dead art.
Yes, to me, it's like, it's so like a guy in the whatever, like a modern guy having like a 70s poster being like, fuck man, this is so crazy. It's like a girl, but her face is a tree.
No,
Like,
it's a 90s guy into the 60s. It's the store shop therapy in Provincetown. Like, it's any head shop. Like, it's bowls.
it's literally
people into glass
bowls. It's
blowing.
just like a chick's legs are spread, but like her pussy's a waterfall. It's like a staircase made out of suitcases. It's just
like a camel is giving birth to a dude.
It's just like, congrats on being trippy. And it's like, she's obsessed with surrealism and all these just
well,
like,
darling, weren't they all smoking opium?
oh honey, if they were smoking whatever they could get their hands on.
So one of her biggest regrets is just like, so she quote unquote discovers Pollock, and then he like really disses her in his later career, and there's like all this writing, and like she's never mentioned, and she's so pissed, and like she's been flying Pollocks around from Europe to America like for years, darling, and putting him in a gallery. And she gave in her gallery at one point, she gives up like selling work of all other artists to just focus on Pollock because she's like so obsessed. And then he like doesn't mention her at all, except then when Pollock dies, his like agent or whatever calls her and is like, you have to be the one to tell his wife. And so they come
So obviously
crawling
she was
back.
very close.
Yeah. And even though how fab is this that like 3 days before Jackson Pollock dies, his wife comes to Venice and calls her up and is like, darling, where should I stay in Venice? And she goes, darling, Venice is full up. We're full. The position is full. Just
Darling,
there's
full.
not a room. Like no Airbnbs here, because she was so hurt, and she regrets and she was like selling and giving away so many Pollocks, and then of course, the work really became worth something. But she's regrets it, but also it seems like she's moved on in a way.
I mean, and but this, I'm sure maybe deep down it really does hurt her.
I think it really does. And also, because she is, obviously she is an heiress, but is probably like, wait, what the actual fuck? I gave away like so many paintings and sold them for like $10,000.
Wait, so speaking of toxic surrealists, so I want to talk about the scene where at one point she's having an affair with Yves Tanguy.
Oh.
Tan guy?
Yes. Okay, that reminds me of something else toxic. You do yours.
And she's spending this week where she knows the wife is in Paris and like she's also in Paris. And so she's really trying to pick her cafes carefully so she doesn't run into the wife.
Same.
She ends up going to this cafe and of course Eve and his wife are there. And then she's there with her friend and then the friend is like, oh, just go over and say hi. And so she goes over and the wife throws a fish at her. It's like such a like full, like, I don't know, there's like lemon slices on the fish. And it's just like, she's in the heart of Bohemia, running in to the lover's lover, and she has a row with her. And I'm just like...
To throw a fish at someone.
Well, it made me... This was a little very me last week, and I was at a bar in the heart of Bohemia. And a painter walked in. A certain painter that my ex-boyfriend may have left before. And it was so just like, oh, dear Lord. Like, however shall this go down? And like a friend of mine was just like, well, how are you standing here, darling? And I was just like, how am I indeed? And I was like, do I throw the fish? Do I go over and throw a martini in his face? Well, and here's another thing, which is very Peggy. I was like, if I throw a martini in his face, Don, the bartender's simply going to hate me. I have a good relationship with the barman. And then I won't be allowed back in the bar. And I've caused a scene and a row and everyone will be upset.
Exactly. Who loses there? The bar. And then you can't go to one of the best cafes in Bohemia. That's actually so respectable of you.
Well, and this happened... And like Lawrence like literally got arrested at one point for like throwing a bottle at some guy that Peggy had an affair with at a cafe in Montparnasse, and then he like couldn't go back to the restaurant. So I was very just kind of like, well, I need to kind of like at least keep up appearances in Bohemia.
I mean, the wife threw the fish, but it's, I mean, can you imagine that cleanup, darling?
Well, if it was just one solid fish.
Not pieces, a flaky white fish.
It wasn't like a big Alaskan crab leg like covered in garlic butter.
I imagine just like so much oil.
So much Old Bay all over this guy.
That is so Peggy, but it's like right. It's like I don't think Peggy would have done that because it's like she is a little bit Miss Manners, and so that's why you are the Peggy. And like I think it's good that you didn't throw the martini. And again, also, darling, we're in the Great Depression, or the Great Depression is about to happen. That's a waste of $14.
No, certainly I wasn't going to waste good.
Throw his martini at him.
Exactly. And ultimately, I left with my head held high.
Wonderful.
And there's no greater victory.
Absolutely no greater victory than leaving Bohemia with your head still in the air and going to be able to go to every cafe you damn well please.
Exactly.
Okay, speaking of Bohemia, I want to talk about just this little fashion moment of another one of her toxic surrealist husbands, Max Ernst. Oh, and it's Marseille stuff. Okay. Max loved to wear fantastic clothes. In Europe, he always wore a black cape, which was very romantic and suited him perfectly. In Marseille once, when I was buying a little sheepskin jacket, Max was so jealous that I had to order one for him as well. The furrier was very surprised, but he made it, and when Max wore it, he looked like a Slav prince. I also gave him my mother's long gown, which made him look very aristocratic. And it's is Max Ernst bi?
Well, she describes a lot of the men she likes as having like fabulous style in this way that is kind of like fagalacious.
But also, like, back then, men really dressed up.
She was like, Lawrence always wanted to wear patterned pants. Like, he sounds like he's being really, really, like, new Gossip Girl. Just always wearing, like, high-waisted, like, plaid, flared pants. And she was always like, Lawrence was the first man I ever met who didn't wear a hat. Which was, like, insanely revolutionary of him.
Right, he's not like in a suit and a fedora. He's in like patchwork plaid.
Which
and
is ironic because I feel like nowadays it's more Bohemia to wear a hat, and it's actually less Bohemia to not wear a hat. A couple other quotes I really love. She's talking about one of her friends, Nellie. Nellie von Doesberg. Nellie was my newest friend, and I did not know her very well at this period. About a year before, she'd walked into my gallery and given me a long lecture on who her husband had been and who she was. I was not in the least impressed and thought she was funny. I allowed her little by little to force her way into my life. I don't like women very much, and usually prefer to be with homosexuals, if not with men. I really love that she makes a distinction between homosexuals and men. Because, darling, she's dead right.
She's literally dead right. Where she's just like, I'm not hanging out with like toxic Jackson Pollock painters. Like, I'm hanging with homosexuals.
The next line is, women are so boring. Anyway, I asked Nellie. She always says anyway, too. She's like, darling, then my father died in the Titanic. Anyway, I bought 17 paintings.
So freaking iconic, Peggy.
She's such a casual fag hag in this way where she's not actually a fag hag because she's not so like desperate to hang out with gay men.
She's the best kind of fag hag because I'm sure there were like other society women who were more like having one husband that was an alcoholic and like beating them like after like a gin feast. And then was like, well, and I had my like gaggle of like surrealist and society gays.
Yeah, she doesn't need to run to her gaggle after she gets beat at a gin down in Barcelona. She just like has an occasional gay here and there. And you can tell because the way she'll be like, oh, he was a pansy. Or just like, oh, there was a soft boy at this random village we were living in for 6 months. It was dreadful. It was the worst time of my life, but I've never been happier.
So I read that it's like it says she slept with over 1,000 men, darling.
Yeah, I mean, what's your number again?
Oh, that's for Patreon, babe.
In the VIP lounge, we will reveal Lily's number.
Yeah, so let's get a few more sign-ups, and I will reveal my number.
I wonder if that number means full penetration.
Oh, of 1,000? I feel like no, because I also feel like it's like was so opium den, and like people are falling asleep, and like it's in a carriage maybe, and like some on like a cross Atlantic flight ship, you know.
But here's the thing, I just feel like back then, like sex was penetration or get out. Like it was all the way or nothing. Like people weren't being so like weird like side saddle hand jobs. Like it wasn't just like, and then darling, he rimmed me and we fell asleep.
Okay.
Like there's-
Honestly, I think Peggy is so hand job. Like, I feel like she was in the back of the cafe and she was like, and so what? I gave Duchamp a hand job because I said, let's get going. We have another gallery to go to.
Well, the word hand job does not appear in this book. I really think that back then it was like you pull up your petticoats, you have an 11-second penetration, and you're just like, darling, it was wonderful. And then we did it again an hour later at a different hotel.
Okay, can we get an extremely old person on the pod to tell us if hand jobs happen then?
Were there hand jobs in the 30s? Please sound off.
Yes, okay, well, you are right because you know how like, hello, like it's so History of Sex Museum where like doctors fingered women to make them come so they would like stop being hysterical because like no woman had ever come before.
Oh, that's like all the porn I watch.
Wait, back to our like trippy anti-Ernest stuff. I mean, not Ernest stuff, surrealist stuff. When she's mad at Max Ernst for never painting her, which is rude, and he's always like painting other chicks.
Agreed. As someone who has been amused several times, not being amused is the worst.
What's also the point of marrying like an alcoholic artist if they're not going to like write a song or
Paint you or sculpt
paint you? Yeah. She also says that she way prefers sculpture over painting, which personally I disagree with, but
that's also a rich person thing to be so bust.
yeah, it's
That's
like,
just
well,
like,
yeah,
where am I
maybe,
putting a bust?
I don't know, maybe right. It's like if I guess I am so cool objects. What am I love dolls?
Yeah, what?
Maybe I am
you
so
literally
sculpture.
have a doll collection.
Okay, so here she goes when he finally paints her, and this honestly seems like a weird offensive painting. This doesn't seem flattering, but one day when I went into his studio, I had a great shock. There on his easel was a little painting I had never seen before. In it was portrayed a strange figure with the head of a horse. It was Max's own head with the body of a man dressed in shining armor. Facing this strange creature, with her hands between his legs, was a portrait of me, but not of me as Max had ever seen me. It was my face at the age of 8. I have photographs of myself at this age, and the likeness is unquestionable. I burst into tears and told Max he had at last painted my portrait. He was rather surprised that he'd never seen the photos because my head was placed where it was and because it was between two spears. I named the painting Mystic Marriage. And she like loves this like twisted, and it's like sounds like he's being like, I've actually never seen you as a child. Like I never saw your TBDs.
Well, then there's also Yves Tanguy, like does some surrealist painting that just like looks like a broom, like coming out of a vase or whatever. And she's just like, it looks like me. Please call it me. And he was like, okay, fine. This is a portrait of Peggy Guggenheim.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like maybe, I mean, this gets back to her hotness where it's a little bit just like, she's not really hot, but
Right. She is X Factor.
she's got X Factor. So I feel like that's why like everyone's banging her, but like no one's painting her.
I mean, I didn't want to say it, but yeah, absolutely.
It's
That's
sort of-
true. And I think
It's
that's
the
a good-
Bohemian version of always a bridesmaid, never a bride, you know?
drop my Kindle. We should probably get into segments, darling, as I have a gallery show to get to.
I have to run to an opening. Let's do segments. An
exhibition of contemporary
segments.
segments.
Well, we're close. All right. What does she wear? How does she eat? What does she live? How does she live?
How does one live?
What does she wear? I mean, she wears the fashions of the times.
Right, but she's wearing these like longer dresses. But then what? This part was amazing.
Swathed in fabric.
Swathed in fabrics, and she's always getting things in her travels. You know what I mean? She's getting a gorgeous sheepskin fur from a furrier in Marseille, but then she's going to Arabia and is like getting this. So there's a gallery show.
She talks about my favorite part is when she talks about shopping in Cairo, how it takes weeks to buy something because you're haggling with the merchants for literally weeks on end, and you have to play it so cool and like go back to the merchant the next day and just be like, darling, I absolutely shan't pay you 600 Greek francs for this earring.
And he's like, no, come back. And then the next day, she's like, fine, I will pay this. Okay, so is obsessed with earrings. And at one point, she has a big gala. She wears one earring by one surrealist maker. and then another like earring by like a cubist or something like that. And then she's like, and that was to signal to everyone that I was bipartisan between the surrealists and the abstract expressionists or the cubists.
Wow.
To imagine that your earring choice could rock a gala like that.
Yeah. To sort of be she was the Switzerland, if you will, of the opening.
So in a way, she is like funky Cambridge mom earrings. If she's wearing these like chunky wooden, like surrealist earrings.
It's about like embellishment, you know? And I think this was like true for just like rich women for a very, very long time. I would say until like up until Jill Sander, up until like, you know, until Eileen Fisher, up until like the influence of more Japanese minimalist design
minimalist
in women's wear,
tones,
in Western women's wear. Like I would say like the tradition has always been like, you know, brocade and embroidery and like
brooches and furs.
And like a mix of a lot of like definitely jewelry from like North Africa and Arabia. And like she loves like Southwestern jewelry and South American jewelry and like accessories from everywhere.
Right. Silks from India, silks from Japan. It's like the style of a woman who travels.
Absolutely. And you know, there's still women to this day, if you go to the, you know, the Met Opera, whatever, are still like swathed in.
Right. So it's like, well, and then someone's like, oh, where'd you get that? And she's like, oh, well, me and Max, we took a cross trip to, yes.
If I may. Okay, so one thing that I've always noticed, like rich women going in opera are always a little bit like want to wear something like a little bit Asian in this way, where it like doesn't have like buttons on the front or something, or like, you know, some like reference to a traditional cheapao or like some sort of kimono like dress.
Yes.
I feel like is very popular at like an expensive like
huge scarf.
Yeah, East Coast
kimono.
White woman gala. I feel like she is maybe not as that, and she's a little bit more just like Chanel
flapper. She's a little more cinched. Flapper. I think like those come off in the earrings. I also feel like she is, I know it's the time, she is wearing like longer pieces.
She's wearing longer pieces. She's also very custom.
Everything feels custom.
Everything is like a maker. Like I went to a furrier. Like, and like she always talked about how Lawrence would like bring very unique fabrics to these menswear designers on Savile Row, and they would be shocked. They'd be like, "What?
Where did you get this?
A man wants to make pants out of this clown material, out of some like shiny clown fabric."
And like when the what do you call it? When that her Marseille furrier was also shocked that like her other husband, Max Ernst, wanted to wear a vest. So it's like, I just feel like her husbands are inspired by her, which is more style of the day, and her husbands look funkier because they're doing it in a menswear way, and people are a little more shocked.
Multiple husbands, she says, like thought that she was like had bad style. So she'll be like, Lawrence always thought that like I didn't dress up enough and I was like a total slob and I needed to like wear more clothing. And like also John Holmes thought that too. And like all these guys are just like literally like kick it up a notch, Peggy.
Here's the thing, because I actually don't think she was being flapper dressed. Like I feel like she was wearing like this like longer dress and weird wooden earrings. You know what I mean? And then they were like, oh, there's these other hotties who are flappers.
Well, John, I believe, or maybe it was Lawrence, made her get a flapper dress made by this French designer that was like one of the hottest designers in Paris in the 1920s when they used to throw parties for all of Bohemia. And was like, you actually need to go get like this dress. Like he basically was just like, you have to get your ass to Rachel Comey right now to get this dress if we're going to entertain at my house. Like, I don't want to see you not in the Comey of the day. So I guess she's fashion, but she's not. She's of the time, but she's like a little bit lazy about it.
Right. And he's probably seeing all these like maybe more conventionally attractive girls.
Here's the more serious question. Part of me feels like she would find deplorable like the yoga pants style of today. And she'd be like, people simply don't get dressed anymore.
I don't know, but
then I'm like, maybe she would be so like cashmere sweatpants.
I think, yes, she would like find like yoga pants. Like she wouldn't wear that to a gallery, but I feel like she would be like living in an insane cashmere sweatpants set, you know, around
or would
the house.
She still just be more like, these are my custom Tibetan silk pants and just be more Cambridge mom?
Yeah, latter.
Or like so Issey Miyake, like full head to toe Issey gallery opening. I'm a fabulous woman of a certain age.
Yeah, I feel like she'd be in. I
All
think it's
three.
honestly a combo. Like she would have a pair of like maybe just like a tan cashmere pant that she would travel in, but then she'd be walking around the house in her like Tibetan silks that Peggy had bought her, and she had them into pants, and then it'd be like big Issy pleated.
She'd be like, my daughter bought me these pants on her honeymoon. She's dead now.
But
Okay, what does she eat?
what does she eat? I don't know. She like never mentions food.
She does talk several times where she was like, I'd lost so much weight. Everyone thought I was wasting away.
I want to say there's a time where she's like talking about a veal. But-
There's time when she talks about how she ate nothing but lamb because like the cooks forced her to eat lamb. And then she was like, then their gardener, Jonathan, raised this pig and they absolutely adored this pig and it was terrible to have to eat its bacon. And then she's like, she talks about how they're like, so we killed this one of our best friends, this poor little pig, but then all the meat turned green on the train to Paris. So it's just like, okay, so you killed your like family's family pig and then didn't even eat the meat. I feel like there's a lot of time where she references not eating.
Yeah, I think honestly it's like more like she is like being fabulous and like she's like is definitely drinking, but I also think these things she's doing where she's like is being more celebrity and like drinking less than others because she's seeing all these like guys who are so wasted and it's like your memory's actually popping. I feel like you're having more of a like vermouth with soda.
Yes. No, she is Beyonce slow sipping the Cosmo over the course of 3 hours. As Duchamp is just like blackout.
And then there's like a huge cassoulet and there's a fish and she's like having a bite of it. Like she would definitely be more like vegetarian or like, I don't eat red meat. Like I think she would be vegetarian in this day.
She's more like even just Didion and like forgetting to eat entirely.
Yeah, like it's there and she's like, oh, the spread was wonderful. Figs, lamb, fish. And that is just kind of talking.
Yes. She's talking, she's holding court, she's having one bite of a pigeon cassoulet.
Done.
How does she live? Darling.
Darling.
As fabulously as possible.
Taking in everything. I mean, as we said, it's like, it is. I feel like at times it's more fabulous than others, and sometimes maybe it does get a little Grey Gardens with all of her like wooden dolls in storage.
There's so many dolls in storage. I like the part when she's living in the cottage that Grammont has renovated generously that they're living in England. And she describes it as being terribly cold, except for the one room with a stove so large you can sit inside. And it's like this old-fashioned cottage, and she's like, at one point he renovated it, but like somehow like renovated it so that she couldn't get her like massive costume chest out, and I'm just picturing this like massive like steamer trunk that's like so like gold plated and like so huge.
Mickey Blanco like in college like had this huge steam trunk like costume chest.
But like 5 times bigger, and it's full of so many scarves and flapper hats and like headbands, and like her daughters and like her ex's new wife's daughter are playing dress up with it, but it's just so large. Like
it's also Bethany in this way where it's like she just has this weird one bedroom in like the Upper East Side and like with so much costume chest, but it's like she's always waiting for the bigger fabulous house, but is most of her time in some other place that's weird and smaller.
She's in a weird spot. Okay, because she's constantly moving is the thing. She's always in some location for 8 months. And like half the time she's in a house that she's like rented from a friend, she's setting it up with all her furniture that she's taken out of storage that was in like smuggled in customs and is like waiting for her in Andorra. So it's like, I feel like it's actually quite chaotic in the way she lives. It's just like there are tons of steamer trunks and boxes and clothes being unloaded. And there's a point later, and I think that speaks to this in the book, where she's talking about her Venetian, because she lives in Venice for the rest of her life. That's where her collection is, where she talks about the couches being covered in plastic, which is so actually like the house Brittany Murphy died in, and it's like actually kind of creepy and fully hoarder.
Also, is it very rich? This is a rich person to do. Again, small dog, rich person thing to do, where they have so much staff and so much going on that like the little dogs are like shitting and pissing inside and like they're not going for a formal walk.
Yeah.
And it's just like there are shit lounges that are getting like covered by Lhasa Terrier shit.
I know. So it's like, so I feel like we're saying that she's very not like the way that we think of like say a Miami collector today, who I feel like has such a modern design house that's like so clean and like maybe has chargers everywhere in the dining room, but like mostly
Yeah.
it's just like empty.
I
Except
think
for,
it's like
their
dark
crazy
and it's like
pieces.
tons of paintings,
Yeah.
tons of furs, tons of silks. It's not so creepy in this way, but like, yeah, she could
But
use
half
some.
the rooms are like two single beds pushed together. Like she's sharing a bed for a week with like her cousin's sister's new husband. And like the kids
Well-
always walking in on them.
And then sometimes she'll be like talking about her Venetian house and be like, "Oh, it was so un-Venetian of me to do that."
But she loves a garden.
Yeah, she had this gorgeous garden. So I think some parts of the house are like gorgeously manicured.
I do like when she talks and she is being so aware and so woke at the beginning when she's talking about how the servants' quarters at her childhood home was like gross. And she's be like, I went up there, it was literally terribly cramped and crowded, and like the lighting was awful. And just like they had to climb over like so many ladders to get into their bedrooms, and I felt terrible.
No, and that's why she trains her gondoliers to be art handlers.
Right, because she wants them to have
A
room to
good
advance in their
life.
career, darling.
Which brings us to
Who are you in the book?
who are you in the book? I mean, the ways in which you're Peggy, it's madness.
I know, but I really do hope that I am. I mean, I aspire to be her more
I think
than
it's
I am.
keep on reading this, keep on being more
Keep on, yes.
Peggy.
Push to be your own Peggy, I think.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, I have all these fears that, oh God, I'm not living enough, I'm not going out there enough, I'm not just saying fuck it, and just having the affair, right? I'm too afraid. But you really just have to go forth and have the affair. It's mostly affair-based, is what I'm
Because she also is like sobbing sometimes in a room that like her like trippy male painter boyfriend isn't painting her. And it's just like, well, yeah, that's sad.
Yeah.
But sometimes then she's like also at a furrier or
But then it's like
just,
also feel the pain and feel the sadness.
and then like go to the dentist and spend the day going to the dentist.
Yeah, I also do wish that I just had a little bit, my inheritance was a little bit larger.
But I mean, same.
In the sense where I just like truly for absolutely decades on never even had to consider making an income, and there was just always so much more money available and just always so many more trusts, and I could always just be like, and I'm supporting like 10 different artists while also opening museums.
But at the same time, here's what's crazy is like she does kind of, I feel like, go broke sometimes, and she is always like bargaining. Like she's like, my financial art advisor told me to like bargain this painting for this because I was like cash poor. So she is a lot of the times cash poor.
But then it's like one of her many uncles just like moves some of the trust around and then she's fine.
Yeah, she also is being like fake heiress where she's like, I literally have no cash.
I literally
which is
have
also so you when you don't go to the ATM and you're like, wait, I have no cash.
I have literally no cash right now.
Well, because the whole thing is that like her father like didn't get as much money as the uncles in like a big upset.
Right, because he hadn't like signed over his will before he went on the Titanic or something.
Yeah, and then at the end of the book, she was like, and that was the only time ever she does like some art deal that I didn't regret, like my dad losing his fortune. So I think for her entire life, she was still just like, what the fuck?
My
My
dad is
cousin-
so poor. My cousin's
Yeah.
way richer than me.
Yes. And like she is regretting like
But if
selling
she
the
had been
Pollux.
even richer, I think that she wouldn't have had the motivation to just like be in
Exactly.
Bohemia and like start so many galleries, and she would have just been too comfortable.
It's all about being a middle heiress.
Yes.
Which is why you should be happy with your inheritance because you're a middle heiress.
I was also worried that I was like John Holmes in this way, where I'm like, oh my God, I've had writer's block for 5 years and then I die in like surgery.
And you're staring at the painting.
And I'm staring at the painting and I've just like, and I've never written my magnum opus and now I'm dead.
Well, don't go under anesthesia in
Before
the
I've
30s.
written.
Okay, I mean, I feel like parts of me are also Peggy. Like, I feel like I am holding court in Bohemia.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel like I'm less of a gallery girl. Yeah, I guess I'm a mix between Peggy and Mondrian. Because he once asks her at 66 where the nightclub is.
And honey, at 60, you're still gonna be dancing.
I'm still going, darling.
I mean, you're also Peggy because you are a hoarder in this way. you're Peggy, but you're also John Holmes, her second, which I'm also worried that I am because they loved records. And Grandma built in their English cottage a whole section for all her record collection.
Oh,
and all her
and he's being
phonographs.
like built in.
Yeah,
phonograph
they did a
section.
gorgeous built-in, and it was like.
No, and I'm pegging this way also because I think, right, my style is going to be like, well, I went to the Southwest and now I'm a cowboy.
Like,
and
I think I'm more Peggy in my affairs, but you're more Peggy in like your collectoring, because it's like I'm a little bit more minimalist and you're a little bit more like all the dolls, all the vintage signs, all the records, just like, and your house is a museum.
Yeah, and I'm so like finding a weird drawing at a thrift store, being like, okay, outsider art, I'm collecting. Okay, done. And between the two of us, we make one Peggy Guggenheim 4.0.
Yes.
Manscaped balls.
I absolutely give this book 10 out of 10 Miro gorgeous paintings that I got for a steal, darling.
Darling, I give my abridged book 10 out of 10 Joseph Cornell conceptual boxes, which we didn't even talk about how that was like such a assignment for me at my conceptual high school, where we like had to make box art inspired by Joseph Cornell.
It was like you had to hide a secret, right?
It was like one we had to like have a secret, but another one was like, no, you had to like create a box. So it's kind of like a diorama, but it's a little more like box art. It's a whole thing.
Okay, inventing boxes. I would just, to our listeners, if you want to listen to this book, if you want to read this book, please read Out of This Century, the non-abridged version. Like, the book should be 400 pages because it is a lot juicier than the like quietly abridged version. All right. Absolutely read this book. You guys, thank you so much for listening to another amazing episode of CBC The Pod. We encourage you to sign up for our Patreon, where you can get into the VIP lounge. This week, we are discussing Hunter Biden's art career and his new opening at a gallery in Soho.
And we are also discussing the new hit lesbian reality show, Tampa Bay's. So yeah, hop in or sign up and hop in.
Yeah, so yeah, you can peace out now if you're done, but if you want that scintillating cultural conversation, go to patreon.com/CBCthepod and sign the F up.
And next week
we will be reading.
Yeah, let's get a little more manly. We're doing awesome actor and ceramicist Seth Rogen's book, Yearbook.
Fuck yeah. There's nothing I love more than weed, men, and hanging out. And those are what I associate with Seth Rogen. So light up a doobie and we'll see you in the bong room. It's a great transition from like surrealist male art to like the ultimate fucking dude.
The ultimate surrealist, Seth Rogen.
All right. Best. Celebrity Book Club is presented by Prologue Projects. We could never agree on a contract, and it killed me to this day. The show was produced by Meg Benane, who had large shoulders and a tiny waist, and all the men adored her, and it made me terribly jealous. With editorial support from Leon Neyfakh, who was about 7 feet tall and had a bird-like nose, and of course all the women were mad about him too. For some reason, I was never attracted to him, and it killed him. Andrew Parsons, with whom I went to bed with several times during the war. It was a war thing, darling, and that was that. And of course, Madeline Kaplan. Madeline was always terribly jealous of my relationship with Leon. I think it killed her that he saw me as worldly and intellectual, and he thought she was a simple girl from Cannes. Our production manager is Percia Verlin, another simple girl from Cannes, although I must say her Italian was better than mine. Original theme song by Stephen Phillips Horst. It was, in fact, the only song he ever wrote, and he always managed to bring it up at parties. Artwork by Teddy Blanks at Chips NY. I was an early collector of his, and I must say, I believed in him when no one else did. Of course, then years later, he was the talk of the town before he killed himself in 1942.